Welcome to the Film It VFX Studios YouTube channel and the Talks Podcast Show.
It was that 2019. We could never have dreamed what 2020 held in store. But even during one of the hardest years of our lives, I'm heartened by everything you're helping us to achieve for those living with PD. With your help, Parkinson's research continues to advance even in the face of extraordinary challenges. You move our mission forward with gumption, drive, and spirit. Thanks for being on this team. Together we can end PD once and for all.
What is up, guys? Welcome to another Talked podcast show, and we are honoured to have the Godfather himself, Mr. Ryan Connolly, on the show from Film Riot. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing okay. So I'm just going to go through.
I'm in basically a bedroom turned into an office. I'm wearing pajama pants at the moment. Zero to be nervous about. Like 5 minutes ago, I was eating like a cold piece of chicken.
I'll put my Gucci jumper on, right? For this,
yeah. As long as you look good, like up, it's like fine.
Yeah. Down below, I've got PJs on.
Yeah, that's basically been my resting state for a year.
I'm up in the bathroom.
Yeah,
I'm putting some deodorant on. She's like, they can't smell you.
But it's like themes in a film. They know.
Yeah,
they know.
Just trying to feel good, trying to feel good for the moment. So, I just want to talk to you about. I'm going to go sort of like straight to the point with your filmmaking techniques, because everyone loves them. I love them. Your latest short was "There Comes a Knocking."
Yeah.
So you lie in your bed, you get an idea for a film, you write the script. Where does it go from there? Because how does Ryan Connolly bring it to the team? Where does it go?
It kind of depends on what the project is. I mean, I have had the good fortune of like a lot of the stuff that I've made. I'm kind of like the acting studio also. So it's, if I want to make something, I just make it. I make it exactly how I want. And, no one's going to tell me no about anything. And, you can collaborate and people give pushback. And that's actually been a good training ground for me is, if I want to be the last say, I can, because it's my company, the money's coming through my company, and whatever. But it takes discipline to hear other voices and realize they're right and go with better ideas that aren't yours. So that's been a really good training ground over time for me. But it does depend on the project. So it's like if it's something that's within my company, it's usually like, how do I want to make this and why? And earlier on, it was like, what would be really cool for our audience, but also what would help, me put another notch in the belt that I feel like I need to be able to get to the ultimate goal of making feature films. So it's like, DJI came to me in 2015 or 2016. I think it was 2016. And they wanted me to do some stuff with their gear, and they were going to just pay us to do like basically like reviews of the gear, and we would have made a lot of money off of it. But I was like, well, I could either make money or I could take the money that they're giving me and make cool shorts with it. So that's what we did instead. And then I ended up putting my own money into, so we ended up losing money, not making money. But we got to go up to Canada, and we worked with a stunt team that I've been wanting to work with for a really long time. That was the first time I worked with a stunt team, and first time I did wire work, and really worked with a stunt coordinator to design out fights together, because I love designing action sequences. I did it before by myself, but never with a professional stunt coordinator. So now I know what that's like, and I know how long that takes, and I know the verbiage and what that interaction is, and that really helped me when it came time to do ballistic. So that's kind of been how I pick projects and how I go about them, like what's next that I really want to shore up, or what's the next crew position that I haven't worked with yet to build in. Because first it was just like doing stuff on my own, and then with a DP, and then now the sound department's in, and now sound department, DP, and makeup artist, and what I mean, and over time building that up till like I think Ghost House was our first full-blown like production with every department. You know, so with something like that, again, when it is a full-blown production like Ballistic or There Comes a Knocking, once I have the script, I mean, first thing is just sending it to all the trusted collaborators to give me feedback. And then once I have that, who's going to help me produce this thing? With There Comes a Knocking, we had Denton Films and Maker Table, and those guys came on, and that was really the first film that I've done where I really stepped out of the producer's shoes entirely. And I you know, just fully trusted them, and they did an incredible job. And the reason I did that is because I really wanted to test it as like, if I do, because I'm, trying the studio route right now. And if that ends up failing completely, I'm just going to make a feature myself. So if I do that, this is exactly how I would do that. And is this going to be smooth? Is this doable? And it went really, really well. But I also wanted to focus on being a writer director. So with that one, the next step was getting producers on board and discussing the vision and making sure they understood what I was trying to do and that we're all using the same references. And, it definitely clicked with them. So that made me really comfortable. They understood what and why I was trying to do. And then they start helping bringing in the key roles. And then it just kind of goes from there. When you're talking like more of a studio thing, that's way more difficult. Like, like I have like two things, out there right now. There's one that with a full feature script, which is why the There Comes a Knocking short film even happened. So I have the full feature script, and I actually developed that with my managers. So at first I pitched them what I wanted to do, which I got my managers thanks to Ballistic, and we were building out a feature for that. But then it was like, this is going to be really expensive, original action sci-fi with a first-time director. That's a pretty steep, hill to climb. And it was like, all right, well, what else do we have? And I pitched that to them, this idea I had for forever. And they thought it was a great idea and that I should go off and write it. So I went off and wrote it, and they were amazing with helping me, find it along the way, just giving me notes, great story sense. So they really helped like guide me here and there, and great sounding board for that stuff. And then once we had the feature, we just talked about it and decided the smartest thing would be to pair this with like a tone piece, something that showed me as a horror director. Because the last time I directed horror was like in 2012, but in reality, I shot that thing in 2008. So it was like not the same filmmaker anymore. It's 10 years later at this point, because this was like late 2018 or early 2018, I guess. Oh no, I guess it would be like, because I think we shot it in September. But so I went off and I shot that, not to be a proof of concept because there was a full feature script. We'd called it a proof of concept because, I mean, what else do you call it? But it didn't really give the concept because I didn't want to put that out there too much. So we were pretty, it's kind of there, in between the cracks, but not explicitly. So it's more of a tone piece, a director calling card sort of piece. So we took those two things and then went out to studios with them. But then you have when you're just pitching and you're not writing the script right away, you're just trying to sell it on pitch. And with that, it's about, coming up with the concept and either building out something that kind of shows what you want to do, take that to your managers, try to get writers on board, or, you build that out by yourself and then try to take meetings just off of this one concept, and it goes from there. So it all kind of depends on what the specific project is. I'm not sure if that answered the question or if I just
it did. Because we did I watched quite a few of your videos where you talk about it's always good to sort of like make mistakes, making errors and stuff like that. And I generally have made errors when it comes to some of the projects I've done. I mean, we did a feature called Twinkle Twinkle, which was a horror. We shot that on the Panasonic G7 with I can actually show you. Actually, this literally was the microphone setup.
Yeah, awesome. Been there.
You know what I mean?
Been there 100%. Yeah.
And do you know what? I sort of said to myself, do you know what? I really want to give this a go. I know that I'm going to go through. It's going to be a big sort of learning curve for me. Do you think I did the right thing, or talking to all other filmmakers on the planet that just literally want to go out there and create? And whether they create a short film or a feature film, was that a good move on my behalf to go out there and write the script and just shoot it?
Yeah, I think the best education is, doing. I always personally advise against going as big as like a feature off the bat, like make a ton of short films. Like, but that's because it's been my path. It's what I can, and I know people personally who were in the place I was, and they went the feature route and I went the little shorts route, and even like Film Riot, just sketches. They weren't even like full-blown short films, you know what I mean? Like they were that's one of the beauties of Film Riot, that it's not something I was like, I'm genius and this is how I will build myself up. It was more like, this would be cool. And then because it was weekly, like something, because one of the things I did want for Film Riot, and one of the plans of it was, we build an audience and then I can release stuff to that audience. And if no studio ever wants me, if that ultimate dream never happens, well, hopefully this will help me build up an audience so I can just continue to share with them. And that's enough for me. I'm making stuff for people to experience. And that's really what the passion is giving an experience to an audience of some kind. So whether it's, 100 people or, 100 million people, somebody is appreciating the thing I'm making, and that would be enough. So that was the idea behind that. But something I didn't expect is that because it was a weekly show, especially early on, like now it's like a conditioned machine to a point where we could do turn things around really quickly. But in the beginning, I didn't really have help, and it was this weekly thing. So it was never like I could really put a lot of polish on anything. So it was like 1 week for me to make a whole episode by myself, usually with multiple sketches, because we would do, the custom ads in the beginning, and then we would have like a little sketch for whatever the effect was. So I'm coming up with the ideas for these, and I would often actually write them. It was very rarely ad lib in the beginning. Now we'll do that a little bit, or at least it was bullet pointed, and and then I had to decide how I was going to shoot it, and then shoot it. And then, so I was constantly trying these little concepts, these bits of pacing, this way of developing a scene and a character without really developing a character, because you don't really have time, but can I give you a sense of who that person is, and it didn't really strike me till years down the road that it very much became this wax on, wax off thing. This what I've always said, it's like learning to play the guitar by starting on the acoustic and then going to the electric. Like if you play guitar and you do start on the acoustic, when you go to the electric, it's like, oh my God, it's so easy. Like the action is so simple. Like it slide my fingers so easily. And that's kind of what it was like. Like it was just a quick fire, experience and trying concepts and whatnot. Cause I mean, you could know how it all works till you're blue in the face. It's not till you put the experience to it to where you really understand it and can apply it with like actual, working knowledge of it, instead of like, well, I know that if I put this gel on this light, it's supposed to shift it to this color. It's not till you do that to where you really see and feel what the light's actually doing, to where you actually understand, oh, okay. And then, well, why is it still not looking? Well, if I bounce it off this type of a texture, then I'm getting that thing on the face that I really like. But it's not until you're doing those things that you find it. So it's like all that constant weekly doing and those quick turnaround 1 to 3 minute like sort of sketches for the most part ended up being a really heightened sort of film school of sorts for me, even though like I said, I had a week. I didn't have enough time to even make it polished, but I was doing it as best I could each time. And then once I became conscious of it, what was happening, and then like, hey, this is actually really helping me like move forward as, a filmmaker, really helping me find my voice and how to construct something, pace something, get the audience to understand what I'm trying to tell them. I started consciously doing it. And even though there are these stupid throwaway sketches, at times it was like borderline bathroom humor. It's like stupid stuff that's like meaningless. I would find something to try. So, I really love horror. I really love thrillers. I really love action. So, okay, we're doing comedy, but what if I instill like a little horror like vibe there? What if we do like a little action beat? And it's not going to be great, but it's comedy, so it totally works because it's just a joke. But I'm able to try things that's like, oh, okay, that's how you really make a punch land hard. And it didn't matter that it didn't really work for a while because it was just comedy,
I think your comedy's off the chain funny.
Oh,
I remember, I think it was 2011, you did the Final Cut Pro X launch video. Oh, yeah. I still, you know what? Right? Because I was in the same boat, right? I had a Mac, right? Yeah. And I was like, right, should I buy Final Cut Pro X? Right, because I was still running the original Final Cut.
Yeah.
And then I think I went out and I did some cooking for the kids or something like that. And I came back and bang, your notification popped up. I was like, oh, Ryan's done a video on it. And I tell you, I've never cried with laughter so much in all my life. The reaction of that. But then I don't know why I bought it. Like, I should have sort of stepped back and thought to myself, look, stick with Premiere for the time being, you know, and then wait for them to do the updates on Final Cut and then probably get it then. But I actually downloaded Final Cut Pro X, and I literally had the same reaction you had.
What's this? Final Cut Pro X is out? Yes! Purchasing, rock! Downloading, epic sign! Finish downloading, baby squirrel me! Installing, opening! Open in 5 seconds, super effing rock! How do I open old Final Cut Pro projects? What the f*** is this?
In the video, I was like,
the hell is this?
like, where the fuck are my bins?
Yeah, because I remember
where's everything.
Yeah, man, they did like the whole like release video for it and everything. It was like, oh wow, and the whole like, you know, this is like a Wayne Gretzky thing. Where's the puck going? And then I was like, yeah, this is gonna be awesome. And then I downloaded it and it was like, what the hell is this?
I mean, how do you? I mean, being funny is quite difficult, and you're naturally a very funny person in your videos. So how do you prep for that for a video? Because I try and be funny, but it never sort of comes over. Like, my wife will look at my videos and say, "What are you trying to do?"
I find like that is the thing never to do is don't try. The stuff that didn't come out was a stuff where we tried. What I discovered is, I talked about it on the show a little bit, but I call it ad lib writing.
Right.
Like I can be hyperactive, especially when I was a little bit younger. I was a little over the top. My brain worked funny. So I would purposefully get myself hyper, you know, toss some sugar up in me or whatever, and make sure I was in a good mood. And then I would sit down and I would just write, just vomit it all out. And then we just went with it. We rarely changed it. If anything, like Josh and I would just read through together. He would read his parts, I would read my parts. And if while we were doing it came up with like a little bit of ad lib, we'd add it in. Or usually when we're actually shooting, we'll find places to ad lib and stuff. Like when me and Josh are talking, he's behind the camera. That's usually stuff we find in the moment. That's rarely written. But that's always kind of been my rule, is don't try. Like, just do the thing that's funny. Don't overthink it. And have fun. Like if you're having fun and you're not trying, that's what's going to work. I do think it's like, some people do comedy, some people don't. It's like some people can do horror, some people cannot. Some people are good at action, some people aren't. It's definitely a very specific lane. Like Josh is hilarious and just so and I saw it like early on, like when he was really young. I was like, dude, you're going to be in Film Riot. I need you in Film Riot.
He's so funny.
Yeah. Or
He's
Emily.
Hilarious.
Emily was like a shock to me. I just used her in this one video because I thought it'd be funny to do this like thing with this, 9-year-old kid, and they're kind of that badass. And then she was absolutely hilarious. It was like, okay, clearly
she was naturally scary in some of her sketches.
Yeah, totally.
Like, Jesus Christ,
Yeah, it's kind of like, is she a little? Are we okay here?
I actually got in one of my behind the scenes of the movie we're doing now, there's actually a tribute to the Final Cut Pro X video where you're sitting in a bath with the gun in your mouth.
Yeah.
We got, I don't know why, but we was doing some makeup on one of the actors, child actors, and he was playing with one of the props of the gun, and he looked absolutely insane. I don't know what he was doing in the background, and then for some reason he put the gun in his mouth like that for no reason. So I thought, you know what, let's just pull the back of his head out. that was my tribute to that actual video. It was so hilarious. And I think it came through in UFO, yeah. One of my favorite films that he'd done. It was absolutely hilarious.
Thanks, man.
Can you? And I actually downloaded the soundtrack for that as well. I bought the soundtrack of you for that. It was
awesome.
Listen, when it comes to Triune Store, in my home and with my family, they're my Christmas presents and my birthday presents. They know I'm not just making this up. They know, right, my wife go, right, have you seen anything in the Triune Store that you want for your birthday or you want for your Christmas? Or my cousin or my auntie or my uncle, Carlo, what do you want? And they'll be all over it. Give me the luck pack, the horror luck pack. Give me this, give me that, give me this, give me that. So yeah,
that's awesome.
It's awesome. And so I want to go back to There Comes a Knocking, because again, really want to see the feature of that. I really hope you get a deal of some sort.
Me too.
to make this movie. So where did the idea come from? Because it's quite a sort of common idea, you know, like haunting and stuff like that. Because I loved the door in the film. And I was like, why didn't he just use a common household door for the scene? Because it'd be a lot like the poster you got behind you of Jaws. What Jaws did to the ocean, you know, after everyone watched Jaws, they didn't want to go into the flipping sea, you know, and have a swim because it terrified them. So did you ever think, why didn't you, I know it sounds crazy, why didn't you use just a normal common looking door for that?
Yeah, and that's a thematic choice. So like whenever I make anything really, even if the general concept comes first, like I'm developing a few things now where it's like the cool concept came first, you know, like speed, there's a bus that can't go, you know, below 50 once it cracks 50 or it'll explode. So even when the concept comes first, I'm not able to really develop it out as far as it needs to go until I have the theme. Like I'll keep developing it and I'll start working on characters, but it all feels very disjointed and all over the place and not exciting. But then once I figure out like, oh, this is what it's about, the about beneath the about, this is what I want to say with it. Then all of a sudden it's like, well, it has to be this character and here's why. And this is what their arc is and here's why. And this is what, you know, exactly how it has to end. And this is why, because it all feeds into that purpose of theme. And it's all driven by that, even though nothing that I make, you know, theme is never on the surface, but it's there beneath it all. And, you know, with There Comes a Knocking, if it was a regular door, then it's then a corruption of something that existed already and was okay. Whereas this door is bringing something into the house that you have. And literally, you know, she hammers it into, you know, the skeleton of this thing, which, you know, thematically, you know, being, you know, that we will keep something, a relic that we should let go, you know, embrace and then release, but instead we hammer it into our own soul and it, you know, eventually will corrupt us. It'll overtake us. So it has to be this thing, this history that shouldn't be brought in, you know, and it is, and that brings the problem in instead of it already existing there. I don't want to go too much further than that because that kind of will start giving away what the feature is, but like that's kind of that kind of clues you into like why, you know, there's the knocking. And I just think the idea of doors has always fascinated me. There's a lot of it also comes very much from like a Nordic you know, pagan you know, rituals and ideas that exists around, some of which I found out after I had my idea. Like I started doing a lot more research and I'm reading these books, and there's not a ton because, you know, how much in the past there wasn't a ton of specific history for it, but there is enough that I was reading and some stuff lined up exactly with what I had in my script, and I was just like, what the? But yeah, so some of it comes from that. So it's also sort of hearkening to that feel and vibe as well. So it's like, what if, you know, there's this ancient thing and it's, you know, attached to these things, and really the ancient thing thematically, the idea is grief, and we all have grief and we all go through grief, and grief can be a very healthy thing, but it also can be something that destroys you if you let it. So it's that unchecked grief, that not the grief that you embrace and you have to walk through. And we all do carry those traumas forever, but you know, sometimes it's not dealt with in a healthy manner. It's not a goodbye, it's a refusal of it. And so that grief is you know, nailed into our souls, and then will ultimately, you know, destroy you. And that's kind of like the theme of it all, and that guided everything that was there. That's why, you know, you have that with her husband, and you know, can you stay? That's why that line is said. So it's really theme that decided that and really dictated everything that happens in the film.
Yeah, I mean, that's because I sort of, every time I look at a film, I try and I try and, what's the word I'm looking for, diagnose why they did this and why they did that. And I think that just makes you, and I was really fascinated with the door. You know, I thought to myself, I was going to tweet you about it and think, I want to tweet Ryan and ask him why he picked that particular prop for the film, because I found it sort of fascinating.
Yeah.
And it was fascinating. It's a beautiful door as well. What a prop. Right. It's like off the chain.
My production designer did such an incredible job with that.
So you're looking at obviously taking this to a studio, you know, to make a feature, which I'm praying it happens. I'd love to see that. And you've got your own team around you. You know, you've got your own bubble of people that you trust, people that you care about. So what happens when you take this to a studio and they start saying, no, you can't do this, you can't have him working on it? I mean, because that's been always been my fear of, you know, having to say to people that have been loyal to me and I'll be loyal to them for X amount of years that they can't be a part of this because the studio doesn't want you in it. They want this executive and they want. How do you deal with that?
Well, that's just the reality of it, right? Like if a studio sort of deal happens, then, you know, you're at the mercy of what they want. And as a first-time director, they're going to want to surround me with people who do this and at that level. So, you know, they're not going to let you bring in people who, even if they've done features were outside the studio system or extremely low budget, because that's a totally different beast. They're going to want to surround you with a DP that's done this a ton and can help you through it all when, you know, the crap hits the fan. So that's the difficulty. That they also want to, especially when you're at a certain budget amount or a certain scale overall, certain studio you know, size, they want you to work with the people that they know, you know, people that they trust, you know, because it's a business and they're betting a whole lot of money on this thing. So they're going to want to hedge their bets as much as possible, you know, especially with a first time director, you know, that's a big enough gamble by itself. So as to allow that first time director to bring in these, you know, it's a difficult ask. And from what I know of from all my friends who have gone, you know, into that so far, they weren't allowed to bring the people they wanted to bring. They were like, you know, here's a list of approved, you know, who would you like to work with, sort of thing. Or, you know, you can bring it to them and they can consider it. Again, I haven't gotten that far, but this is just from what I've seen, not what I've experienced. You know, you can bring those people to them, but, you know, it doesn't mean it's going to happen. On a lower budget range, you know, if you're doing much more of an indie level and those people can genuinely operate on that level, I think it seems like that's far more doable. And you could always try, but you know, if you're dealing with somebody else's money, you know, that's just the way it is.
Because I think I sort of shot myself in the foot. I don't know if I 100% shot myself in the foot with the project we're working on now, because through a friend of a friend of a friend, I managed to speak to someone who's very high up in a stream. I can't say what name it is, obviously, a streaming service. And I was talking to the person on the phone and I pitched the idea of the film we're doing now. And they turned around to me and said, this sounds like a series. And I was like, yes, it definitely does. But I really want to get these films made. I want a chapter 1 and a chapter 2 because we're trying to do this film in 2 chapters. And it was a case of, we said our goodbyes and he said to me, I'll call you back. And that was like 4 or 5 months ago.
Yeah.
And I literally haven't heard anything since. So,
yeah,
you know, I sort of think to myself, hold on, because I stood by my guns, yeah. And I said, no, you know, it would be nice to do a series of it, but not yet because I want to get these 2 films made. Did I actually shoot myself in the foot and blow my chances with this studio? Because he was probably getting off the phone saying, no, he's literally not going to do what we're telling him to do. Yeah. So I just won't call him back. So it's that sort of fear that I sort of have around these sort of people, you know, telling me what to do. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. You know, do you feel the sort of the same way? I mean, do you get worried about what these studios expect you to do? Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. And I mean, it could be that what you're saying or not, because I mean that is extremely common. Like more often than not, send it to me. I'd love to read it. And then you send it and then never hear back again. Oh, this is great. Let's set another meeting and talk about this. And then silence forever. Like that's pretty common. Sending something out and getting responses or callbacks is the odd man out. That's when it's like, wow, that struck. Yes. So that's just a very common thing to happen. And they might have seen it as a series, or they're looking to do series. They're not really looking to do films, because I mean, that's another perk about my managers is they're able to let me know, like, this place is looking to do this place is looking to do that. They're not looking to do this. They're not looking to do that. You have, if you have a streaming service, you have a film department, and then you have the series department. So there's also that they would have to literally pass it to another department entirely to go from there. With that stuff, for me, I'm far more fluid. There's very few things where I'm like, unless it's straight up like, no, this could not be a series. It's a film. Like if the story is like, yeah, this actually could be a series, I'm happy to be fluid with it, because it's still the same thing, So with that stuff, I'm like, I'm totally happy to explore that. Whatever's best for the story is, what I want to do. So if this would work better, if this would be a better told story as a series, I'd love to explore that, and that leaves, you're not saying like, yes, let's do it, but you're leaving the door open for conversation to see where it goes next. I think that definitely goes a long way, especially when starting out, is to show that you're very collaborative, but you have, a distinct vision. Like, this is my vision, but love to hear what you'd like to say. Having a grip on what is the about that under the about, what's going to make this thing great, why it works, why people are going to want to see it. That stuff is, really important. But then, being open to collaboration enough to be like, yeah, let's talk about that. I would love to hear that perspective, that sort of thing. That really helps. And definitely so far, my experience of dealing, it's about 2.5 years now, maybe. Yeah, I guess we're going close to 2.5 years now, 2.5 years of, dealing in this sort of side of things. And that's definitely been the case, is being very open to collaboration, because it is extremely collaborative. I mean, even to potentially get something made, you have to have a general, and then you pitch, and then you pitch to that person's boss, and then you pitch to that person's boss's boss. And then if they like it, you have to pitch it to a studio, so it's like, and it keeps shaping as it goes along, because then they have notes, and then the next person has notes, and then the next person has notes. And then if the studio likes it, they're going to have notes. And then you start writing the script with writers, and that gets sent to the producers, which gets sent to the studio, which goes back down. And, so it's intensely collaborative. So then it becomes something. So far, I mean, again, haven't made a feature yet, but so far with the collaborations that I have done and what I've been working on, it becomes something where you have a firm grasp on what this film is and isn't. You have a firm grasp on what you want to say with this film, what your vision is. But then you are open to collaboration and shifting and making sure people feel heard. And that helps you be able to make the film you want to make. Because I mean, even when I make my short films, and I am the end all be all as far as the yes or no, like if I want to say no, it's no, and we move on. I don't have to argue if I don't want to. But being open to shifting your ideas, because you have, I'm always very sure that I have a handle on the core of what this film is and isn't, and that core will never change. I always say it's like a cake. It's like you have a chocolate cake, that's the core. It's a chocolate cake. Whatever the icing is, man, you could do that 1,000 different ways. You could have the same flavor icing 1,000 different colors. You could put sprinkles on it or not. You could put candles on the thing, or if you want, or not. Decorate it or don't. Have it a plain cake. All that can shift, and it's the same cake. And that's what I tried to keep in mind. So as long as we're not shifting the core, I know why this scene is doing this. I know what its purpose is. I know why she says this. I know why the camera moves this way. That when my DP comes in and says, I also get why we're doing this, but if we did it this way, I think it'd be more effective. Then you could be like, let me think about that. Okay, actually, I see what you're saying. And yes, that that does the same thing but better. But when they come in with something that, no, I don't think the camera should move, then you get to say, well, no, here's why the camera moves. Here's why we move in at this moment, because at this moment she says this and it means this. So the movement is, I want to move our audience closer to her. We're getting more intimate. If we stand still, we're on the outside looking in. We're not interacting with her, you know. So you have a reason for why you're doing each thing. You know, so again, just bringing it down to having the handle on that core allows you to shift the external. Because I think I've noticed a lot of people will get stuck on the external, like, well, if this was my idea, and if I shift my idea, I'm showing weakness, and that's not the case. Like, if you have a very strong vision of what the film is at its core, that's everything. That's the only thing that truly, truly matters. Everything else can shift. Is it a punch or a kick? Who cares? Does he hit the guy? You know what I'm saying? You know, so it's like being flexible in those areas show, you know, confidence, and you know, it's this. And if it can't be a series, you know, like, because you said, yeah, it could. So if it could, well, let's explore that. Is it? And then maybe we might get to the point where it's like, no, you know what, this is a feature. And I'm actually developing a project where we were like, maybe this is a series. And I was like, I don't think it is, but you know, let's explore that. And so that's what happened. And let's explore it as a series. And we talked about it a little bit. And then I was like, I don't know that it is because of these things, but I'd love to know your perspective. And they went off and talked and came back and they were like, okay, you're right. We don't think it's a series either, but we explored it for a second, you know, and then we all came to the same conclusion of, you know what, it's not. And then it turned into something that's kind of a series, but in a different medium. So it's oh, we could do it like this, and that'll bring it back to the feature we want to do, you know. So it's still staying like fluid enough, because it's, you know, for me at the end of the day, it's I want to tell my stories, and I want to tell my stories to an audience, and you know, what medium I tell those stories in does matter. So if it can't be this thing because this is a story I'm trying to tell, it has to be this, that's one thing. But I find that pretty rare for me. Like things can shift quite a bit. I mean, There Comes a Knocking could not be a series. It's a very contained, like small story. It's, here it is, here's what's happened, and you're done. Like, you can't,
very Conjuring universe sort of,
right? Yeah, and you try to extend that out to a series, and it, you know, it's not so compelling because now you're really just trying to stretch something that isn't there. But a lot of the other things that I'm working on, you know, definitely could be like that. Man, there's so many stories inside here that we could tell, and the overarching stories happen longer while throughout the piece, as we, you know, can dive into these extra little stories, which often do make it more impactful because you get to live with the characters more, you get to live with the world and the themes more. So again, rambling like crazy.
No, correct. I love it. I mean, all this information, what you find out is so helpful. I mean, I do go back. I mean, I do, you know, have a sort of a little bit of sort of paranoia when it comes to discussing projects with sort of major studio, because I had a bit of bad luck. Quite a few years ago, I was developing cut a long story short, I was developing a cartoon because I do animation. So I was developing an animated cartoon. I was nearly 8 years working on the film, and I was about 10 minutes into the project. 10 minutes in the film. It was going to be a short 30-minute movie, and then I had a studio contact me, a big studio, wanted me to do some work for them, and they said to me, "We want to fly you out to LA to have a meeting." And I'm like, "Listen, you know, I'm a father of, you know, 2 kids, you know, I can't afford to fly to LA and all that stuff." So they arranged to come to me. This guy arranged to come to me in the UK. Yeah. So I'm looking at the missus thinking, do you know what? We've hit the big time here. This is amazing. If they're thinking about, you know, flying over to the UK, they must believe in what I do. So anyway, we had the meeting. We got on literally like a house on fire, you know. It turned out I'm half Italian. So the guy was Italian that came to see me. So we was gelling. I mean, we had pepperoni on the table. We had olives, you know. It was a fantastic day. So anyway, I had the movie I was working on my screen. I was still working on it as we was talking. Then he was like, "What's that?" And I explained to him, and he said, "I know some people that would really love to do the music for this film." Now, at this point, I had not copyrighted the film. nothing. I've done nothing legal for this movie. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I took his word for it. I thought, he seemed like a good guy, sent him the project, the film. I rendered what I did out, sent it over to him. It was about 2 months later. I was sitting in my front room, in my living room, and I got a call from my sister. Now, the film was based on my youngest child, yeah, and the film was called Oliver, which is his name. And she said to me, Carlo, can you go to this channel, because is that Oliver playing on a shopping channel? They were selling a TV, yeah, they were selling a television, and my movie was playing on the TV on the shopping channel. So he had stolen the movie, he'd got some people to do some bits for it. So it was like a 10-minute short film, and it was on. So obviously I'm on the phone to the shopping channel. They were like, "Oh my God, can you prove this?" And I was like, I sent them all the concept art. I sent them what I could, everything I could. And they took the movie down from the channel, from the shopping channel. So obviously ever since then I've been really sort of paranoid about, shall I trust again? So on and so on. So
Yeah.
how do you get over something like that? How would you, if you, for instance, doing your movie, there comes a knocking, and then all of a sudden it gets stolen.
Yeah.
How do you deal with shit like that? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's definitely, again, having my managers has been really great, because they understand the business side, way more than I do. So that's been really helpful. And, pre that, it was really, I mean, when Ballistic came out, there was a lot of requests for meetings from producers and production companies. And I had a bunch of those meetings, and I had no idea how to navigate it. And what does this even mean? And they wanted, let's develop a feature version of this. And it's like, well, what does that mean? And there's multiple people who want to do I go with all of them? Well, how much do I say to these people? What is, so I totally feel you there. It's definitely a scary sort of thing. I mean, thankfully, when you make something, you own it, whether you've copywritten it or not. If you have proof that it's your creation, there's some protections there. But I mean, that's definitely not sending anything to anyone without a paper trail.
Yeah, I mean, my wife turned around to me and said, "You are a effing idiot." She was like, "Why did you do that?" I mean, but I was so excited, the bars,
I probably would have too.
It's like, oh my God, I've got these, And then I found out later on that the guy didn't come from LA. He didn't fly home from LA. Oh. He lived about 45 minutes up the road from me.
That bastard.
Yeah, little shit. But I sort of, I won't lie to you, I had a couple of days of tears. It was 8 years out of my life,
Yeah. It's hard.
Yeah, my mum was like, let's get solicitors involved. And I'm like, listen, I'm not, a healthy man, I've got all these underlying health conditions. I really haven't got time for all the solicitors and suing this and suing that, because it would just literally drain me.
Yeah, the stress from that sort of thing.
So, I sort of put it to the fact that, well, I'll just dirty his name. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'll just dirty. That's if it was his flipping name anyway, in the first place, But I just want to go back to more happier things. Your relationship with Lucas is amazing on your show. It's just fantastic. It's like a bromance, isn't it? It's like
it is absolutely a bromance.
Did that start with Ballistic? Am I right in saying that? Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because when you released Ballistic, I'll put it all on a memory. I bought the pack. I'll put it all on a memory stick and straight on the telly, and I enjoyed every second of it. So, sorry, how did it all come about with Lucas?
Yeah, I for Ballistic, I knew how big it was going to be. It's the biggest short film I've done, easily by double, if not more. We shot it across 2 states. We had, I think, 8 cameras rolling at one point. On average, we had, I think on average for the action, so for the daytime action stuff, the average was 4, and at least 3 at pretty much all times. because we were doing so much with so little time. And, you know, a lot of stuff we had one shot and that was that. Like the opening car was shot, happens the way it happens because the car didn't really do what it was supposed to do. And we didn't have time or money for two. So it was supposed to come up and like flip and land on its side and then sort of slide and come to a stop. And then it was, you know, it'd have been awesome. It would come around and then you hear the pounding and then she falls out of the car that just flipped. But you know, audience doesn't miss what they didn't know you didn't get. So it's it hurt me inside, but I was like, that's fine. And it wasn't even supposed to, like, it hits and the explosion happens. That wasn't supposed to happen. It was just like, our wires got crossed because there was an explosion for the next bit. And so the explosion happened. And it was like, whatever, that's fine. So it comes up, what actually, it like launched up and then just landed on its tires. And we were all like, damn it. And so it was like, all right. And on the day, I think Lucas and I talked about it for a second. We had an idea of like, oh, what if we could probably do it like this and it'll be fine. And then, you know, so we fixed it. So there was a lot of things like that where it's like, we're going to do this one time and that's it. You know, some stuff if we could do it one time, I'd prefer it because it's really dangerous. And I don't, you know, like where the guy gets ripped into the van. Yeah, that's dangerous. And you know, my friggin' like heart is in my stomach when that stuff happens, because I don't want anybody getting hurt for friggin', you know, my movie. You know, it's a movie. I don't, you know, they're far more important. So that stuff is so like, oh my god,
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, you parking?
What was that?
I have somebody over here working. That was a sneeze, and it sounded like a horrifying bark. Jesus,
I thought that was Josh Van Buggers then.
That scared the shit out of me.
Ryan, I'm deaf in one ear. Right, and I've got this.
Are you okay?
So yeah, I've got this volume so loud.
What if I would have like panicked and dove under my desk? Man down! Shots fired.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Was it bad boys? Woosa.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so a lot of stuff that was just one take. So a ton of cameras, and then we have like, you know, we shot it on the Canon C200, but then we also had some GoPros that we actually never ended up using. We had a Phantom camera. We had a Canon C300. We had, I think there was one other camera we used at some point, but I can't remember what it was. So we had even all these different, you know, cameras that we'd have to wrangle. And I knew how much footage that was going to be. And I'm a director who edits. I'm not an editor that's also a director. I mean, I've edited, you know, other large projects for friends and stuff like that. So I definitely can do it, but, you know, I don't want to be an editor. I'm a director. So I don't, as far as creatively goes, I'm confident as a director, but as far as like organization and pipeline goes, I'm a director. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I edit my stuff as well, and I'm telling you now, my head's like that.
Exactly. So I was asking around to friends, trying to find it, because another friend of mine who's much further along in their career has been telling me for years, like, stop editing your own stuff, stop editing your own stuff. And I used to think like, are you saying I'm a bad editor? But then I realized once I had an editor, what he meant. And it's just so much better to be just directing, you know, 35,000 foot view. And while they're working on the, you know, the ones and zeros, you're looking at what comes before and after. And it's a lot easier to disconnect from the moment when you're not the one dragging things around and doing the thing. And you don't know how hard it was to get that little piece to technically work. So it, you know, it's not as big of a deal for you to be like, no, that doesn't work, because you're just looking at it creatively. But I was looking around and I found Ryan Booth did this documentary about a high school football player.
Right.
And the opening montage of this kid just training and being in games and stuff like that was, I connected to it so much in its pacing as like an action piece. It felt like an action piece. So I called him up and I was just like, yo, who's your editor? Connect me. And then we talked and hit it off right away. Again, we use all the same references. We like all the same stuff. He's basically like me, like we're just mirror images of each other. So we hit it off right away. And then, you know, when we started editing together, he was as goofy as I am. So it was just a blast. And neither of us feel the need to be like deadly serious all the time, even when we're shooting. But we both, you know, get serious when we need to, and then go right back to joking the second we don't have to be. And it just makes it all more tolerable, more fun, more connected, and then he just has my style. Like, our style is so close that he would do some stuff and I'm like, that's literally exactly what I was about to suggest, and he's just wicked fast, and he's got great ideas, and working with an editor of his talent brings in, it's kind of like working like with an actor or a cinematographer. It's all the same stuff. Like, if you're doing the cinematography, you have the idea in your head of what this shot's going to look like, what it's going to feel like, what the camera's going to do, and you kind of get locked to that. But when you collaborate with somebody and they come in and the light's over here instead of over there, and they added this color in, and they suggested, well, maybe this lens instead of that lens, and then you look at it and you're like, oh shit, that's like way better, but it's doing the thing we talked about. Like, you're still hitting the vision. The vision doesn't have to be the exact, description of what I have. It's like we said before, that core is still there, but now it's like an actor. I also write, so I write all my stuff, and then the actor comes in and I wrote Stephanie's lines, but now Stephanie has to say them, and they're not said exactly like it's in my head. And then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, that's a real living, breathing moment, and it's like, some stuff is like, is this going to work? And because I'm not an actor and I say it out loud and I'm like, I think this is good. But then you have an actor come in and perform those lines, and now it exists. It's real. And it's like, wow, it's like she's really, this is a real conversation. This isn't performed. This isn't read. This is real, and that's what they bring to it. And it's an inflection that's different. Or she had a lot of questions. Well, why would I say this? Would I just say this? And then we get to have those discussions, and some stuff shifted because of it. Instead of me grabbing this like this, what if I did it like this? I was like, oh yeah, that is a lot better. And it's the same thing with, Lucas. We have all the discussions of what the film is, what the film isn't, what I want to do with it, what it all means. And then we start working on that thing, continuing to have that conversation as we go. And editing is a lot of problem solving. It's like everybody says, you write the film, then you write the film and you shoot the film, and then the final, rewrite is the edit. And that is so true. Like, those flashbacks in Ballistic that happened were not scripted originally.
Really?
We found that it was feeling a little emotionally disconnected between the past and the present, that I didn't feel like we were with her. And then I believe Lucas came up with something, and I was like, oh, that's genius. And and then we discovered this idea of doing these subjective, like, little flashes and stuff, because that puts us inside of her mind, and we get these subjective bits that clue us in emotionally where she's at, that let us take us ultimately to that, instead of the sort of painful, violent flashes that we have throughout that are like these tragic thoughts in her mind, that finally she remembers the truth of what her mother was saying, and the truth of what her mother did to her, for her. And that flash slows down, goes quiet, right? And then, that's her to, us having that different emotion with her and what the past meant to her. And that, like, changed everything. Now everything was stitched together and worked great. So we only were able to find that because we shot the LA stuff first, and then I flew out to Lucas and we cut all the action bits first, and we were kind of messing around with that. And that's when we were like, this isn't going to work by itself, shifting, because we haven't shot the the past scenes yet, the nighttime scenes. And that's when we came up with the idea of the subjective bits to stitch it. And that's when I wrote it into the film. And Josh, my brother Josh, he like directed most of those like flash bits too, like second unit direct type stuff, which is the only film I've ever had where there was a type of second unit director on. So it was great having him there, because there were times where I just threw a camera in his hands and I'm like, I don't have time, go shoot because like where Hannah, the lead, is running away, the big action scene happens, she shoots the guy in the chest, he blows up, the other guy, and then they're chasing her. That whole little chase sequence, I didn't have time to go shoot the bad guys section of them coming after her. Sure. So I just tossed Josh a camera and I was like, hey, take Daniel, Daniel was the DP of Sentinel. And I'm like, go shoot all that. And I could see in his eyes him being like, wait, what do you want me to shoot? And I'm like, just they're running. This is kind of what happens. Figure it out. I trust you, go. And he did it. It was great. Which is funny because I did to him what a friend did to me that I complained about, where it was on this big like $2 million short film. And I was out there helping him, and he would keep doing that to me of like, hey, I need these bits. Here's a camera, go do it. And I'm like, but what do you need? And I just had to figure it out. But he nailed it. It was great. But yeah, like, you know, Lucas just had my brain. But I got to like back off and allow him to bring perspective and his own voice to it, just like you do with an actor, DP, all that stuff. And it just makes it so much better because again, I'm not cutting the movie I shot anymore. You know what I mean? Like I wrote it, I shot it. I know what's there and I know what I intended. Lucas is coming in, looking at the footage and going, well, what could this be? You know? And so instead of it just being what it is, Lucas is like, how do we take what it is and make it more? And then I get to come in just like I do with anyone else and, you know, hold the reins when I need to and go, no, shift a little bit left. We're going too far right here. Oh, no, shift a little more right. And it just, you know, it just makes it so much better.
That's amazing. So you can see, I mean, when you look at your videos, when you look at the vlogs, you can see there's a bond there. You can see there's a connection. I mean, the film we're making at the moment, it's the first time that I've had like a cinematographer and an assistant director. People sort of take the way, because I've always been a sort of like 1 or 2 man band. Yeah, that makes sense. When we did Schizophrenia, it was just myself and 2 other friends. We did that, and we knocked that out in a weekend. You know,
I think it was like 10 years after film school where I finally like used a cinematographer. So I totally feel you there.
Yeah. So does it feel weird not editing your own stuff now?
I thought it was going to be, and maybe if it wasn't Lucas, it would have been. I just lucked out. I recognize how much I lucked out, like that we connected like we do, because that's rare, you know, to find the people like, you know, when Chase and I shot together, he shot Ballistic and There Comes a Knocking. It was like, oh God, yes. It's just all the pieces, which I shot with Chris Adams and I adored shooting with him. Ryan Booth DP'd 2 of my films and I loved shooting with him. Josh Nepper, Daniel Ruth, like all of them were amazing collaborators. I loved working with them. We definitely connected. But then I'm sure you know what I mean. There's other times where like the pieces fit together, but sometimes the pieces fit together so well, you're like, this is weird, you know? And that's like Lucas, Daniel James, my composer, Chase Smith, the cinematographer. It's just the pieces go together so perfectly.
Always call it a puzzle.
Yeah.
That has been separated over time and it's found its way back together.
Totally. And all those times it's like, is this the first time we've collaborated? Because it feels like it's not, you know? So it was just such a good fit that like after day 1, I was already saying, I never want to edit my own film ever again. You know,
I think it's very similar to me and my assistant director, because when I'm on set and obviously I'm doing my directing thing and I miss something, he will pick up on it straight away.
Oh, that's the best.
And he's like, Carlo, you know, because we were shooting a scene and then I forgot some of the dialogue in the scene. And I was like, right, we're doing this scene now, so and so. And he was like, Carlo, are you gone brain dead? We're meant to be doing this bit first. And I'm oh yeah. And I love that because I've never had that. I've always done everything myself or tried to do everything myself. And it's literally drove me insane.
I think that having an assistant director was one of the best level ups I've ever experienced. Is like doing that on your own while trying to do everything else is a nightmare. Isaac Lewis was my AD on Ghost House and Chainsaw and There Comes a Knocking. And he's another one that's just fantastic. It's like puzzle piece falls right into place. And he's just so good at like moving things forward and keeping a good atmosphere on set and being respectful to everyone, but still pushing everyone, you know, because they have to, you know, they got to be moving everything forward. But, you know, no a-holes is my rule. And he has such a good way of being like authoritative and like, hey, move it, without being like, hey, move it. You know what I mean? So it's like, you know, it keeps it that great family atmosphere that's working together to make something special that, you know, I'm always trying to make. But yeah, I totally know what you mean. Like, that's the best when you're like, oh yeah, that's right. We were supposed to shoot that and I almost missed it.
It's someone that just sort of like thinks like you and connects like you.
Yeah.
So you know that, you know, you don't want to go home after that day doing all that filming thinking, oh my God, we've got to go back out again because we've got to do this, this and this.
Yeah.
Even though you've got your shot list and real papers and your documents, sometimes you're sort of still forget. I wanted to talk to you quickly a little bit about sort of negative feedback on projects that, you know, either I do or you do, so on and so on. We did, like I said, when we did Twinkle, we got a lot of hate after the film was released, and we got a lot of love. And it sort of, I found it sort of depressed me a bit, because I sort of knew that I made a lot of mistakes, but everyone was saying, Carlo, this is like your baptism by fire. You've got to sort of take it on the chin. You know, don't sweat it, so on and so on. And then for some reason, I entered it in the film festival and it got a selection. And I was like,
yeah,
well, you know, did I do as bad as I thought I did? How do you deal with criticism, and how do you deal with not bad feedback, but disrespectful feedback? Because that's always been the problem with me.
That's the difference.
That's
All right,
right.
so negative feedback. I drank too much water. I was getting distracted.
Yeah, don't worry, I'm the same way.
Yeah.
Sort of not negative, but more, you know, because we got a lot of, like I said, we got a lot of hate on Twinkle, and some of it made sense. I won't lie to you, like, you know, you could improve the audio, you could do like constructive criticism, but some of it was like, you know, you should stop wasting your effing time. You know, really, really rude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What are you doing, mate?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, we get those all the time. There Comes a Knocking had a ton of that.
But I can't believe that.
I was a little sideswiped by it, because I'm proud of the film. I really love the film, but
It's a beautiful film.
I you know, like, not everyone's going to understand what you're trying to do. Not everyone's going to understand what something is for, and you know, it's not. My films are never trying to be a complete film. It's a short film, you know, and I want to make feature films. So the short films I do make, my style has always been leaving them like a bit ambiguous, you know, like you're not 100%. Like Ballistic definitely does not answer questions, as it has a lot of them that it poses, but it answers pretty much none of them. Like, what is this world? What are these stages? What are the, but something that entertains me and gets me to really want to make the short film is to pose these things and put that out there and have answers for them, and then infuse little clues along the way to where if you wanted to, you could like think about it and come up with your own like theories of, oh, I think this is what's going on. And I think that's more fun and allows you to, you know, continue talking about it or thinking about it after the fact. And also, you know, I want to make features. So if this is this closed off story, is anyone going to be like, man, what is this world? Can we extend this out to a feature when I've already just buttoned it all off and closed it up? You know, now it's just a calling card for what I could do as a director, but it's not necessarily something that it's like, hey, is there a full version of this? Because obviously this is incomplete. What else is there? You know, and every time I've done that, producers have come a calling. Like when you leave that world open and it's like, oh, well, what is this? It's, you know, it's a bit of a teaser, you know? So those are the two reasons that I do them that way. And that can definitely make people angry that don't like that sort of thing. But then, you know, like Proximity was very much that, like, what is this world? What is this thing that's going on? Why did he shoot him at the end? Why did it, you know? And you know, with that one, way more, we saw like people in the comments and stuff as it took off on views, like trying to, you know, debating what it all was, what it all meant. And quite a few people got extremely close to what it all was and what it all meant. Yeah. Because I also like to use what you already know about cinema or what you've seen to also use that as kind of a clue to, you know, build the world out for you as well. But with There Comes a Knocking specifically, it was sort of a proof of concept without really, like I said, pushing the concept too much, because there's already a feature script and we're really using this to go with this feature script, which the concept is in that. So it's kind of a tone piece. It's kind of a, you know, an example of my directing. And, you know, that definitely put a lot of people off. Plus it's like a drama for most of it. And then it shifts sort of scary at the end. And that definitely put people off. So I think, you know, a lot of people wasn't expecting it to be what it ended up being. And so you have all that stuff. Like if you go see a movie and you have this preconceived idea of what it is, and then it's something else entirely, that could be off-putting, and all of a sudden it messes with, you know, your enjoyment of that film. And then you watch it later and you're like, hey, I actually do kind of love that movie. So there's that stuff. Then you have people who are just going to be jealous. They didn't make a thing and you did, you know, there's that aspect to it. And that's not like, I didn't like this, never bothers me. These are the things I didn't like about it, never bothers me. But you get a lot of like, I really like Ryan's directing, but he sucks as a writer. And it's like, well, what didn't you like about the writing? Because this isn't a complete story. Do you not like that it wasn't a complete story? And that's usually what it is. And it's like, well, that's what this is, So it's like, you got to kind of take it on the chin with that stuff and recognize what are the things that are not constructive, because they're either not understanding what this is, it's not trying to be a complete story, and they think you just wrote a complete story when you definitely didn't. So you can pass that off and like, okay, they don't understand what this is. Or is this clearly someone who has an issue of some kind? You know what I mean? And it's just like F you, stop trying, you'll never make it. Meanwhile,
I've had death threats.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like
I've had it. Where it's like,
I'm sorry,
you can
die, mate.
watch this. Not that serious. Yeah.
Only made a movie.
Yeah. If somebody, has the temperament to tell somebody else to, stop doing the thing that they love just because they didn't like the thing they just make, that's somebody you can definitely not pay attention to ever.
Yeah.
So I just find that a lot of these people just have their own problems. They're either just unhappy and they project it wherever they can, or they're jealous. I've seen that a lot, not even of my own work, of other people's work, where it's like, clearly you're mad that they made something and you didn't. And that something that they made is getting attention, and you wanted to make something and you didn't, so that definitely happens. But the constructive criticism is great. And I use all that, and it's a bummer to hear people not like a thing. Like a ton of people didn't like There Comes a Knocking, and it's like, fair enough. You didn't dig it. It wasn't for you. That's fine. And I mean, there's stuff in the past even that I made that the criticism was coming out, and I'm like, yeah, fair. That part was, I definitely screwed that up. I mean, there was stuff in like Ballistic specifically that there were like a lot of people complaining about this or that. And I'm like, yeah. And I don't want to come out and be like, here's why. I mean, I think I did eventually on the show, but it was because, we tried to do this and this didn't succeed. And when you try to push past what you're capable of, it's not always going to work out 100%. And this stuff happens, and then you just take it. Like I said, you take it on the chin and you keep going. And then, it's like I said too, you're never going to please everyone, but if you find your audience and this audience really dug it, well, there you go. If I would rather put out something where a group of people absolutely hated it and a group of people absolutely loved it than to put out something where everyone went, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Because then it's like I did something that was like, oh, literally no one's going to think about this further. I would rather you be thinking about it because you hated it that much than not thinking about it at all. You know what I mean?
I love constructive criticism. It's like, it's the biggest compliment you can get. I mean, I remember when I did Schizophrenia, I think you watched it and then you commented on the audio and said you could do this, you could do that, you could do this. And the first thing I did, I jotted it all down in a notepad and thought to myself, right, I do know I have to improve the audio. Right. Yeah. But money was tight.
That stuff is critical. I mean, the best constructive criticism comes from a place you trust, right? Like my friends or other filmmakers that I sent it to. I remember I talk about it all the time. I sent something to James Wan way before Film Riot, and he actually responded, and it was so helpful.
Yeah.
But even stuff that are just YouTube comments that I don't know, this person could be 14, and never have touched a camera in their entire life for all I know. But they have a point, and as long as you're leaving yourself open to, and it stings. It of course stings. It's like when you write your script and you show it to your trusted people and they have notes. I'm getting better at it, but my first reaction is always like, no, it's not. It's fine. It is what it is. Like when I was writing There Comes a Knocking, my managers would always give me notes and I'd be like, I like it though, and then I think about it and I'm like, damn it, they're right. Or I would try it and I'd be like, oh man, this is so much better. So it's leaving yourself open to constructive criticism. And the difficulty there is like not allowing it to crush your confidence. If especially early on, I figured out very quickly where I was at, and I've tried to stay objective. That's why it's not till 2018 after Ballistic was when I really finally started being like, all right, now I'm going to try to make a feature. And I waited that long because I was trying to make a feature on a certain level. Like I want to try to pitch to studios and stuff. When I say try to make a feature, not just try to make one on our own, which we could have, but then we had Film Riot, and there's how are we going to do both those things? So I waited that long to really try to pitch to studios because I tried to stay objective about where I was at, and it was always very important to me that if I was going to ask someone to bet on me, that I could look them dead in the eye and with as much confidence as I could have, be like, yes, you can bet on me, because it's always a gamble. Even when there's some of my favorite filmmakers of all time made not great movies, right? So it's like it's always a gamble. But after Ballistic, I was at a point where I felt confident of I can do this, but before that I was objective, and people would comment and I'd be like, yeah, for sure. Yeah. You're right. Definitely fucked that one up. Even in that action series that I talked about that we did with DJI,
there's the rooftop. Was it rooftop?
Yep. The rooftop fight was one. It's called what was it?
What's it called?
Foot chase. It was like the worst. They weren't short films. They were like these little.
And then you did the hallway, didn't you? The hallway.
Yeah, hallway. I just called them where they took place. So bar brawl.
Easier said than done.
High fall. But the reason I car chase. But the reason I titled them that, the reason I titled them that, because I wanted the title to be a clue of, I don't think this is a short film. This is a sequence. This is like an action moment. And I think everybody pretty much got it, that this isn't a short film. This is like, this is a cool action piece. But a couple of them turned out the way I wanted to, but pretty much all of them, we were trying to take like $2 and stretch it to $200. And so they didn't all, I learned a lot of being cautious of how far I push something. Like I push something beyond where it should go with every project. But that really taught me where that ceiling is, and to not go past that ceiling. Because once you do, then you start crippling things, and everything turned out okay. But there's a couple of them where, man, I shit the bed with it, because it was like I tried to push it too far and it just wasn't possible, and everything fell apart around it. And that was a learning curve for me. I don't think any of them were terrible, but if I was trying to hit a 10, I hit max a 5 with one or two.
I think all your work, over the years, because I subscribed to you 11 years ago, something like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's been a long time. I think your consistency is what's made Film Riot what it is today. The consistency, you're always consistent with everything you do. And I think that's a big thing. I've never been, when I started my channel, I wasn't consistent. And it wasn't because I didn't want to be consistent. It's because sometimes I'd be unwell, sometimes my Parkinson's would kick in, things like that. And that's going back to, what we was talking about earlier about, I should have focused more on making more short films. But when your time's limited, I probably got about another 10 years before I'll be totally incapacitated. Do you see what I mean? So right. I'm trying to sort of, like a friend of mine said, because we got literally 5 features in the pipeline. I'm not lying to you.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And a friend of mine, one a close friend of mine, said to me, "Can I ask you a question? Are you doing these 5 features because you're time limited?" And I never thought anyone would get it, because I had it with everyone's saying, "Bloody hell, how many features you gonna do? You can't, you never do it." Do you know what I'm saying? What was it? So I was like, yeah, that is basically what it is. I want to get as much done as I possibly can before I can't do it no more.
Right.
And I say the same to you. You need to make a feature film. You need to get a feature film out there, because you've been ready for fucking years, bro. I don't know what you're waiting for. I'm like constantly waiting for a feature from Ryan Connolly.
I'm working on it, hopefully. But that's awesome, man. Like, I love that you're just getting after it like that. And if you're doing, and this is what I look at like with myself too. It's like, if I'm doing what I love and I'm enjoying it, That's all that matters.
Yeah, I love it.
And like I said, I'm pushing hard for, you know, the studio stuff now, but if it doesn't work out, if it never works out, if no one ever, you know, cuts me a check to make a feature, and even I try to make a feature on my own and I'm never able to pull it together, but I'm able to do Film Riot and I'm able to do the little sketches and the short films and entertain people and help people, you know, that'll be enough for me. I'm passionate and I love that. I'll never stop trying to get to the feature. You know, that's my ultimate passion. But, you know, if it never happens, I still have, you know, this that I'm doing that can be my outlet. It's gonna happen. Like, even if I have to do it.
Of course it is. I've been thinking for years, why hasn't he got a feature out there? You know, what is this man waiting for?
Hopefully
fly down there and like
hopefully this year I can announce something, but who knows? Wait and see. But yeah, I'm not gonna, you know, push for studios for much longer until I finally say, you know, screw it, I'll just do it myself.
Yeah.
And you know, if that's the case, that's you know, that's the most likely, like, if studios doesn't have it, I'm doing it myself. And if that's the case, you know, low budget features, I'm still making features, I'm still telling my stories, you know, and that's, you know, all that.
I think that's what it's all about, expressing yourself, whether it's for a feature or a short film. It doesn't really matter as long as you get your story out there.
Totally. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that's what's the main thing.
Like our therapy, really.
It is. It's definitely my therapy. It takes all the crap that's going on behind you, and it just makes me happy. It just really makes me happy. And
I find it's also kind of how I process the world. You know, whenever anything's going on that's like you can't quite process this thing that just happened or is happening, you know, you take it to the page or you take it to, you know, in front of your camera, and then that's kind of how you process it, you know. I guess that's what we're saying. It's therapy. And that's kind of, it's shaped, you know, who I am, my opinions, you know, my empathy, how I see the world, how I see other people, how I deal with other people, you know. It's kind of shaped everything, which is really interesting.
I sort of make, I mean, when I'm filming and I'm directing, I'm doing my thing or I'm editing, people talk to me about, you know, because it takes a long time. I mean, this is why we're doing this video today. I mean, it is, you know, we are trying to raise money for Michael J. Fox Parkinson Foundation, Research Foundation. So it takes a lot longer for me to do things than everyone else does because my hands don't stay steady. Right. So even when I'm working in After Effects or, you know, I'm typing the script, or, you know, I'm lucky to have a great group of people around me to sort of take that burden away from me. Because, I mean, everything I've had to buy is not to help the film, but to help my disability. For instance, you know, the Ronins, okay, the Ronin gimbals. A lot of people, oh, that's a flash piece of kit. That looks awesome. Yeah, it helps the footage not be shaky. Because if I hold you know, even if I've got like the best stabilizers in the world, you know, like, for instance, I can't hold a cup of hot coffee because as soon as I hold the coffee, that's it. The hands go everywhere. The walls get a splash of paint. It's like crazy. So all these tools that I use that people would class as a tool to make a movie, I use them because they help with my disability. Like putting the camera on a Ronin, so on and so on, like that. So it is stressful, but it's crazy because I still enjoy doing it. You know, there's not a barrier there's no one's gonna turn around and say, like, Carlo, quit while you're ahead. Do you know what I'm saying? It's never gonna happen. I'll just keep pushing until
man.
I haven't got no more left, you know. I love it that much.
Yeah, because I mean there is no ahead, you know, there's no like end point. You're telling stories. There's always another story to be told, and the accomplishment and you know, that sense of achievement that comes even when you finish something. Even when I finish something that I'm like, yeah, that's not what I wanted it to be, there's still that, but I still made that, and there's that moment in there that works really well.
When we had the premiere of Twinkle, we had a UK premiere of it. I was still, it's not perfect, you know what I mean, but at the end, when we got a standing ovation, I mean, that was brilliant. That was electrifying. It was when we went to the after party and my 19-year-old son turned around to me and said, Dad, I'm well proud of you. That is what, man. Do you know what I mean? That is what did it for me. That's you know, sod the premiere, sod the standing ovation, all that. that is what, you know, I don't know the words I can describe it. It's just awesome.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. Like my my kid right now knows that she's 4, so I mean, but she knows that I make movies.
Oh, bless her.
Yeah, but I don't know that she understands it fully. So it's like, you know, daddy make, well, she's 5. I don't know my own child's age. But it's just like daddy makes movies and she doesn't quite grasp that, you know what I mean? I don't think fully. But you know, the day that I think she does and that sort of happens, I just think I'll just be a ball of tears.
Yeah, it's the best fit. I mean, I've got a 10-year-old and I've got a 19-year-old. So my 10-year-old is studying acting at the moment. He goes to drama school and stuff like that, you know, young children's acting. And he's actually in the film we're shooting now.
Oh, awesome.
It's like his first big role, which is awesome. But I think it was my eldest, which, you know, tipped me out when he came out. Because, you know, he's a typical teenager.
Right.
You know, he goes up to his room, he puts his gaming PC on. Yeah, man, I'm going to play him on Fortnite, all that. And he's very sort of cocky and, you know, he's a lovely kid. Do you know what I mean? But he's a teenager, you know? So for him to sort of turn around to me, you know, when we was at the after party and say, Dad, I'm well proud of her. I think it's pushed me more to carry on. Despite everything, just keep going. Yeah. Until I hit it, until I hit the nail, because it's only a matter of time before you hit the nail on the head. You know? Yeah.
And I mean, you're making stuff and it's everything's somebody's favorite thing at some point. You know what I mean? So it's like, I always talk about like in the early days of Film Riot, I was a little discouraged. It kind of felt like I'm just making these like borderline fart jokes, you know, in these episodes, like, and it was a very new and different thing. And it was like, you're not really connected to anyone. And I was in Florida and you know, you're not really in front of an audience. You're not really, I didn't have money to go to like these conferences that YouTubers went to and stuff like that. So I never saw like followers face to face. I was like, does this even matter? Am I doing anything? Like, what's the point? And then I got 2 emails that year. One from a soldier who, you know, told me about, you know, him and his buddies got together. They're deployed and they're away from their family, and the stuff that goes on over there is, you know, rough. And, you know, it was a very personal email. And then he talked about how they would get together every Thursday and laugh at our episodes, and that it was a release for them and it was thanking us for it. It was just like, holy shit. And then another one that I talk about all the time and I'll never forget it, is this kid is another very personal email. He was talking about his parents were getting divorced, screaming at each other every night. You know, his girlfriend just broke up with him. He was playing his Xbox to find a release, you know, and that broke. And, you know, now he finds himself in his room and, you know, doing nothing. And then he discovered Film Riot and he binged it. And, you know, we had him laughing and we put a smile back on his face and he just wanted to thank us for it. And that completely changed my perspective about the things that we make. The thing that some people even made the comment about what I made was pointless, was useless. I'm wasting my talents. This stupid joke or this irreverent thing is like, you know, you could be making serious stuff, or even things that I had said about movies like Twilight, because I personally didn't like Twilight or whatever. Completely shifted my perspective of these things because it's someone's favorite something, right? And, you know, someone was given the gift of release from this thing. Someone was given the gift of a smile and forget for 10 minutes, if even only 10 minutes. And that, that like fueled me for the stuff, you know, we make, you know, be it a feature or something much shorter, like you're giving that gift. And it made me think about the stuff that I've watched that I, you know, was very stressed or something, you know, last year, incredibly tough for all of us, still tough for everyone. And I just started thinking, you know, you think about all the movies you put on just to make yourself feel better, you know, and it's that like amazing thing that can bring somebody that I think makes it the most worth doing when you really think about it. And it makes it all, you know, it keeps it from feeling like, why did I make that? Well, you don't know who watched that and what they got out of it, whether it touched them from a story place, whether they felt seen because of what the story was about, whether they could relate to it and feel not alone, or it just let them forget about the nonsense for even just 2 hours or an hour and a half, whatever it was. Like, as much as it's therapy for us to make, it's also therapy for me to watch other things, you know? So it's just, yeah, that stuff can be so impactful, even when you think it isn't. You never know, you know, who flipped it on and who it was able to help. And it's just this, you know, this dumb joke that we make weekly, and you know,
that's
actually
what I love about Film Riot, because I'll tell you something really crazy. Well, not crazy. It's totally great. It's amazing. Before I lived in the house I'm living now, okay, I lived on the other side of London, Southeast London, okay, and I was taking my son to school one day, and this is no word of a lie. This is on my son's life. I was walking up the road, right, and there was a group of teenagers shooting a music video. Right, and they were shooting it on a Panasonic GH4, and they had this slider, okay, and they was using this slider, and I was like looking at the slider, and I was thinking, that slider's wicked, mate. You could see it was a what do you call it, built by themselves slider.
Oh yeah,
so
yeah.
I sort of stopped. I said, that slider looks familiar, you know, and he's like, yeah, Ryan Connolly built it on the show. We did the same slider. They built your slider.
That's
So,
amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I walked my kid up to school. Yeah, I'll come back. And then I came back and I sit down on the fence. It was a summer's day. He went into his house. Made everyone a cup of coffee. And we was just talking about your videos for the afternoon. And then I ended up helping him with a music video. So that's how far I think Film Riot's, your reach, shall I say, your reach is incredible. So
that stuff blows me away, man. I whenever we hear stuff like that, it's like, that's, you can't quite process it. It's just, it's amazing. It's amazing.
We just sat there talking for hours. We got on like a house on fire, and then we ended up becoming great friends after that, all because of one of your videos.
It's so cool.
It's awesome, isn't it?
And that's cool.
So I'm just going to give you some before we wrap up, because I think we've been going for quite some time now, haven't we?
Oh yeah.
Because I've got a lot of hard drive space.
Time flies.
Some quick fire questions, but I'm gonna do it as a bit back. A lot of people say, "Right, Ryan, what's your favorite director? What's your favorite movie?" I think that's boring. Okay?
Yeah, I think everybody who watches the show knows that one.
Yeah. Yes.
Favorite movie.
Yeah, definitely. Is it Spielberg by any chance?
Maybe.
Okay. Least favorite director and why?
I don't have one. I mean, I don't have one for like the reasoning that I just said before, and even if I didn't have one, I don't know that I would answer the question, because then somebody who's listening that it might be their favorite director now feels diminished, and why? You know what I mean? Like, they're not wrong for loving him, and I'm not wrong for it not connecting with me. So I can't really think of one off the top of my head that I would even say doesn't really connect, because I would say most directors have films that I enjoyed to some extent one way or the other, or I thought how they did it was interesting. So I can't.
Yeah, really... that was a bit of a lame question, really, wasn't it? I'm not too good on this question. Okay, so if you had the opportunity to direct a movie that you feel you could have brought more to, yeah, so you would have changed stuff in it, you would have done this rather than this, what film would that be and why?
A film that already exists.
You could, yeah, TV show, film, yeah.
I think kind of same answer, because it's like, it's weird. It's like something that already. This was this person's vision of this thing, and you know, you would do every movie differently. I'd tell you, I'd love to make a movie in the Alien or Mission Impossible franchise. Like if I had to jump on like a franchise that already existed, probably Alien would be my first pick. I tell you one thing that I would chop off a leg to make is Zelda, The Legend of Zelda.
Really?
Oh my God, I would love to make that. And now
I don't know what I made that as a film yet.
No, not yet. There used to be a cartoon in like the 80s, and apparently they're making a series for Netflix, but I don't know where that's at, if it's going to happen. But my kid's gotten really into playing Zelda and watching me play Zelda, and that's just even made me love it even more. Like she goes to, she makes me put Zelda's lullaby theme, you know, the da-na-na. She makes me put that on repeat to go to sleep to at night.
Oh, bless her.
Coolest kid on the planet.
Maybe you can knock up a short one day.
What's that?
Do a short.
Oh man, that's actually I've rejected the idea of fan films for forever, but that's one that I would potentially do. But man, if I got to make something in the Zelda universe, that is one I would absolutely.
I would love to see Alien film right sketch. I really would.
I would love to make it.
It's just getting them characters made up. Totally. Making the alien, that must cost a ton of money to do.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I would love to. We've talked about, and I'm sure we'll do it eventually. We're gonna do hopefully we're gonna do a bunch of stuff this year as things hopefully start getting back to normal.
Mind you, the original Aliens, I mean, the costumes wasn't that great. It's just the way it was lit. It was made very dark, the strobe lighting.
Yeah, totally. And then now you watch it, it's like, oh, that's clearly a person in a suit.
yeah, it's crazy. I remember years ago they had, because they filmed it in the Trocadero in London, underground. I think it was Aliens they did, and they had an experience which was called, I can't remember, Alien War. And you would go under, so you'd pay a ticket, you'd go underground, and they had the whole set of Alien, the thing, and you'd go out there, had all the eggs, but they were the real sets. What they used, the scene in Aliens where they first enter the underground, where the eggs are. Yeah. No, just as they enter, it was like the corridor. Do you remember when they spot the burn mark on the floor, and then they sort of pan the cameras down?
Aliens.
Aliens. Sorry. Yeah. Gotcha. Sorry. Yeah. So they had all them corridors there. Gotcha. And they the lights, the strobes would go off, and then you'll get the aliens chasing you, and you'll be fucking bombing it down and flipping out. The health and safety in that place was horrendous. Tripping up, falling over. But I'm going back. God, good 20 years now.
Oh wow! Do they still have it there?
No. It was there for about 5, maybe 6 years. And you would walk in. I remember you'd walk in, and they had the Queen. Full-size Queen in there. You would do the thing, and then they had the bit where you would sit in the car, the tank, and it would close. They had actors obviously impersonating the Marines. It would close the door. The alien would come in, try and open the door. The lights. It was replicating the Aliens film, so it was pretty awesome.
That's really cool.
Pretty awesome. So Ryan, listen, thank you so much. We've been going on for hours.
No, no problem.
So about the dumbass questions at the end. That didn't go.
No, there are no dumb questions. Yeah, no, I mean, they're all good questions. I love hearing different perspectives from different things. So
you're an absolute legend, man. I love you. Keep doing what you're doing, man.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Take care, brother.
All right, man. Keep kicking ass.
Yeah, definitely. I'll send you my next film when it's done. You can. Yeah. I'll send you the first draft of the film.
Yeah, please do.
And you can, if you want to put it on your show and just criticize it, or so, I don't know.
Yeah, what's
critique it,
check it out.
But it'd be awesome. Ryan, you're a legend.
Thanks.
Take care, brother.
All right, you too.
Again.